County Board of Supervisors meeting, recorded October 3, 2023.
Calling the Portage County Board to order. Roll call.
We have 22 supervisors present. Supervisor Morrow and Supervisor Pataki are remote. Supervisor Sislevich is excused.
Is there a speaker down there?
Is it that laptop?
The department is absent.
Oh, it's online.
On first base.
Bingo.
Is that better? Oh, yeah.
Oh, really?
There we got it. Yay. Finance figured it out. Did we get roll call? Yep. Pledge to the flag, then the invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Invocation by Supervisor Hakala.
Yes, I will not be saying a prayer tonight. Instead, I'd like to read 3 quotes. It was once said that the moral test of government is how that government treats those that are in the dawn of life, the children, those that are in the twilight of life, the elderly, and those that are in the shadow of life, the sick, the needy, and the handicapped. That was Hubert Humphrey. We cannot help everyone, but everyone can help someone. Ronald Reagan. This July, our space agency, NASA, beamed the following into the universe through their deep space network. Peace and love, peace and love. The author of that message is Ringo Starr. That's it. Thank you. Peace and love.
Correspondence.
We have Wisconsin Counties Association Forward Analytics priced out the steep cost of childcare in Wisconsin.
Was a big topic for those of us that were at the Wisconsin Counties Conference. They talk about the child care throughout Wisconsin, trying to figure out what's the answer, what's the best fit. So next item, we've all been waiting for a presentation from the county executive, state of the county address, and the 2024 budget presentations.
Thank you, Chair Haga. I'm kind of getting a reputation around the county as trying to maybe push things a little faster than they kind of go sometimes. And I was actually over at my daughters, and I got 6 grandchildren. They have a house with 4 bedrooms, and I was staying in the guest room, and all of a sudden I hear this bang, in the morning, and all of a sudden I go up to the bedroom where there's bunk beds where a couple of my grandchildren are, and all of a sudden my grandson Titus, he's about 6 or 7, he's in there in his jeans, and I go, Titus, what's going on? And he says, well, Grandpa, I like to get to breakfast first. And so I thought I'd try something different. So he hung his jeans on the inside doorknob, and he jumped from the top bunk trying to go into them so he could be first to the breakfast table. So just to let you know, those are the kind of genetics you're dealing with right now.
Don't try it, John.
Chairman Haga, respective county board supervisors, elected and appointed leaders, colleagues, friends, fellow Portage County residents. Thank you for the opportunity to address you today, for taking time out of your busy schedules to gather to hear the state of our great county. Portage County, the heart of Wisconsin. Perhaps the motto, Heart of Wisconsin, was chosen for our physical location in the state, but our status as the heart clearly goes beyond mere location. What does the heart actually do? Physically, a heart pumps and powers and sustains the body, supplying what is vital and also eliminating that which is toxic. Poetically, the heart is a symbol of a human center, our emotions, our loves, passions, desires, and the force of a will. This is why we describe something as done wholeheartedly when no effort is spared. During the course of my life, I had the opportunity to work with some of the most astute professionals in the world. Prior to being elected, I was convinced and would be hard-pressed to find people of that caliber going forward. Then I attained the position of county executive. Let me tell you, the people that I've had the privilege to work with here at the county who put their whole heart into their professions would be the pride of any Fortune 500 company. The level of competency, professionalism, and dedication that they bring to the table as a matter of course never fails to impress me. But they aren't just skilled. I have really met people such as thoughtful, knowledgeable, and compassionate people as our own staff. I say this not to just praise our staff, which is fully deserved, and frankly, they don't hear it enough, but to implore all of us not to become complacent and take for granted the greatest resource we have here in our county, our own people. The culture and the ethic found within the walls and buildings that house our own Portage County is not easily replicated or repeated or replaced. Sometimes it feels like we are in a room here on opposing sides of a battle. Pick a topic. Someone will be sure to politicize it. Have I ever mentioned how I don't like politics? But I love team sports. There are a few things more satisfying than combining your talents with other talented people and achieving something greater than you could ever done before. When we work together, we don't just boost our abilities, we also cover each other's faults. No one goes through life without making mistakes. Just ask my family. They'll give you a list, maybe a book, or maybe not. Because most families understand that while criticism acceptable in order to help someone learn, improve, and grow, there's a right and a wrong way to do it. But that's what the rest of your team is for, to hold you accountable and work with you to improve and thereby build up your team and win the prize. I believe we are all here together on Team Portage County. We have amazing resources here in Portage County. Our number one resource is always our citizens. In our community, that makes Portage County a place that people visit and then decide to stay here and make it their home. We have abundant natural resources that make us both a destination for recreation and also contribute to feeding the world. We have both industry and delicate ecological preserves. We are home to both the financially wealthy, but also shelter some of the most downtrodden and disadvantaged among us. As we head into the next year, we will again see inflation, supply chain issues affecting everyone at every income level. Jobs are available through diligent work, honesty, and frugality, and a person can carve out a place to call home in Portage County. As you go about your daily life, please take time to look around you and notice the struggles and concerns of others. We care about each other here. Time after time, I have heard people who visited our community and decided to move here and stay because how welcome they felt. We don't need a committee or an agency to make people feel welcome or serve your family or friends. We need to have some heart and realize how blessed we are in this county and this country. Let us flow with encouragement and praise to pump life into everyone we meet. We have power to make positive change in each other's lives. You can help someone today, kiss your wife, hug your child, brother or sister, become a foster parent, or even just holding open a door for someone. Praise and encouragement sown reap so many benefits later. Anyone can complain, but it takes a real man or a woman with heart to look for the best in everyone and desire to pump life into everyone you can come in contact with. Let's truly be the heart of Wisconsin. With that, we've got a lot of ground to cover in a short time to get there. So Lee, would you please start the presentation? Next slide, please. Okay, this is kind of a tax levy summary. As you take a look at the categories that make up the levy, that are actually our operating levy is actually up from last year, about $329,000. Our healthcare referendum levy is down about $950,000, which we'll talk a little bit about later. Our debt service levy is only up about $120,000. Our countywide EMS levy is up about $300,000. Our bridge culvert levy is down $850,000 from last year. And so it comes up with a total of $34,950 for a tax rate of $4.30. The operating, the net new construction was 1.11% compared to 1.67% last year, so it's down. If you take a look at that, what it does to the average median home, The median home value in 2023 is $184,900. If you take that by the levy of $4.30 per thousand, you come up to about $795 per household. But again, I also want to let you know that the average sale price of a home in Portage County in 2023, according to Redfin, is $265,000. So if you get one of those homes, you can expect higher property value taxes. Let's take a look at some of the healthcare budget assumptions. The healthcare budget reflects an operating loss that requires the use of additional levy in the amount of $1,934.357, which, like I said, is down over $900,000 from last year, basically because we don't have the expenses of the architectural, construction, and Tegra's costs in there. The county bridge levy was decreased by $150,000. Apparently, municipalities are not not using that the advantage of having the 50-50 split cost share. There's not that much bridge work to be done by the highway department this upcoming year. Debt service tax levy increases by $127,000. And the county is estimating $858,000 supplemental county and municipal aid as authorized under Acts 12 and 19. This is a real big deal. I mean, Wisconsin Counties Association and many people worked really hard this past year in passing legislation which basically gives municipalities a portion of the state tax income. Because as you know, over the last 20 years, the amount of money that was being spent by counties as a percentage of the budget was getting higher and higher and higher over time. So and they knew that was not sustainable over a long run. So some major legislation was finally passed. Bipartisan effort was approved, and so we've got a major $850,000 coming in from these municipal aids that are really going to significantly help the county this year and in years to come, as long as they always approve it in the biennium budget. Also, the county has a workman's compensation increase of $141,000. Okay, let's take a look at the outstanding debt limit. Total equalized value for 2024 basically went up about $800,000. So we got a total equalized value of $8,712,315,400. That increases our debt limit to $435 million. Our outstanding debt is only $9,620,000. So we only have 97.8% of a debt limit available. That means, the county is basically in excellent shape when it comes to outstanding debt. And basically, the county has been keeping this position for, as far as I understand, the last 10 years in anticipation for building, what was a jail LEC court, which we never have gotten into or have accomplished. And that's one other thing I'll talk about later tonight. Okay. When it comes to the budget, we're looking at part of it is the capital improvements plan. And here are the things that are on the capital improvements list. Basically an ADRC washing machine for $130,000. That includes just the washing machine, but also the whole hood, the stainless steel ductwork. So it's not just a dishwashing machine, and then also the construction to put it in. Emergency generator for the replacement of the law enforcement center. Floor tile replacement for the law enforcement center, a walk-in compressor for the replacement for the law enforcement center, transfer facility roof, which comes out of fund balance, which does not actually come out of debt, the material of the MRF push wall, which again comes out of fund balance, the park's roof replacement that is on the capital improvement plan, the LiDAR elevation update for planning and zoning. It's a total of $225,000, but $91,000 is going to be a grant, so it's probably it's only on the capital improvements plan for about $130,000. We used to have funding for library flooring replacement, but because that contract is coming up this year, we basically took that out of the capital improvements plan and threw in interior annex finishings and a chiller replacement for the annex, and also elevator control upgrade. That plan can be liquid as we go forward to see what happens with the contract with the city. But because of the contract coming up, we adjusted the capital improvements a little bit. The security camera system for the jail, for $504,000, but that's totally grant funded. The chiller replacement for the LEC, that's basically just architectural drawings. Also, the highway projects has $3.6 million. Next slide. Okay, let's just take a look at a little bit about human resources highlights. An expected decrease of about $3 million in the fund balance for use on anticipated health insurance claims, expenses due to claims trend. The health insurance fund had a positive year in 2022, and the county was able to successfully reduce some of the funds. So far in 2023 has been a year of high claims, and which will continue to be monitored. Right now, we had a fund balance of well over $9 million, but now because of higher claims, we're expecting that fund balance to be drawn down. We're looking at putting a 2.5% reduction in health insurance premiums, but we decided not to because after we adjusted halfway through the year, so that health insurance balance is coming down. We wanted to come down, but it is going to be monitored as time goes on, just so you know. There's an increase of $12,000 related to investment interest income with the rising interest rates. And the vacation changes that were made in 2021, along with the changes to the salary schedule effective January 1st, 2023, have helped with recruitment efforts, continue to review and make, and the HR is continuing to review and make changes to the salaries and benefits will always be ongoing and necessary in today's job market. Additional ERP features, enterprise resource planning were implemented, and steps were taken to be able to implement the personnel actions module. I'd like to talk a little bit about this. I mean, basically, you know the Munis system that the county works on. There's a bunch of modules on Munis, and we're not actually utilizing nowhere near what we can. The enterprise resource planning specialist basically implements these modules to make us become more efficient, kind of just the way we were kind of implemented the employee health resources plan that we're trying to implement over at HHS. By creating some efficiencies and getting rid of some written, again, creating efficiencies by sharing information throughout everybody in the county. Payroll modules, capital improvement plan modules. But so that's, and actually, that's one thing I want to probably work with HR is next year, which possibly would be a position request of a person to actually work full-time to implement a lot of these enterprise resources planning modules. Next slide, please. Okay, let's take a look at what's been happening with the wages over the past few years. In 2022, we basically gave the employees a 2.25 increase plus 2 steps. In 2023, we gave the employees a 2% increase plus a step. This year, what we are proposing in the budget is a 3% increase plus a step. To let you know, a 1% increase is roughly about it costs the county about $325,000. I think you all understand what a step is. Every single year, every employee in the county gets a step up. And that step for the first 5 steps is 1.5% step. The next 15 steps after that is a 1% automatic increase. So that's the proposed increase for the employees' wages for the upcoming year. If you take a look at it, we got, we'll talk about, we got like over $500,000 more in interest income. We got about $850,000 more in the shared revenue. We got some other slight increases, but those 2 increases right there got used up just in the employee package of increasing wages of 3% plus a step. Okay, let's take a look at new position requests. And basically, when you take a look at a budget, mostly it's all labor for Portage County. I mean, you've got the fixed costs of the highway and the sheriff's department, and variable costs of fuel and some supplies, but the majority of the costs are labor. And so when you take a look at a budget, once you know about how much income you have coming in, you get all the information from the departments, and as far as what's going to happen with the fixed costs, and you adjust for that. Then you take a look at what you have to do with the employees as far as what's happening in the job market, and you adjust as much as you can for that. Once you've adjusted for that, hopefully you got some money left over for new positions requests. That's where you can help the areas in the county where you would like to see better services administered. Here's what we've done, the suggestions that I've come up with staff. We're basically looking at promoting a drug detective, a deputy detective drug investigator. There's the cost of the budget. We're doing an outpatient services supervisor in HHS, which deals with alcohol, drug, and mental services. We've got 4 social workers that are basically all grant funded, so that doesn't come out of the budget or out of levy. Where there's just a little bit of a reorganization of hours and UW extension that's going to cost $5,000. We got a solid waste scale operator, but it's going to be basically supplied through user fees. The positions that we did not put in the budget. Planning and zoning put a request in for a zoning coordinator. The district attorney put in a request for a victim witness coordinator. You'll see the $50,510, that would be the cost of the county. There are reimbursements for that position. That reimbursement, the total cost of that position is like $91,793. There is a reimbursement if you were to put it in of $41,000, so the total cost of the county would be $50,510. We're looking at also the idea of a communications specialist, a public information officer, which we did not fund, and also that enterprise resource planning project manager, which we did not fund. There was some reclassification request that came through by from highway for a supervisor, 3 managers, and an engineer, and we decided not to put those in the budget as well. Next slide, please. Okay, now I'm going to go really fast through these next slides. Again, the budget is really pretty simple when it comes to the overall concepts for the county. I'm just going to go over some really highlights of certain departments. I'm not going to read all the specifics on the slide. Again, I'm just going to go over some highlights. Those are, if you want a copy of my presentation, I can get it for you. But these are all available to you online through the budget summary. But basically, IT is going to be very busy the upcoming year with the rollouts of the audiovisual equipment in multiple locations of the county, and the annex, updates in the annex, over in the library, over in the ADRC, and over at Highway. They're basically in the process of installing new computer phones and computers with upgraded authentication services. They're also going to be upgrading their cybersecurity measures and the computer storage. Take a look at facilities. I highlighted where there's the elimination of one FT from a maintenance tech position. Unfortunately, we lost an electrician, and Brian Todd does an excellent job with maintaining all the facilities, especially in a year like this. As you know, we've had the water main break over at Ruth Gilfrey. He's been putting in extra time, and his staff with the healthcare center work for the building and getting the information back to Tegra and Findorf. He's also been working on the Justice Center work group for that information as far as analyzing that of what we're going to do this past year. Is Todd here? The guy has been busting his tail with all that's been happening this whole year. I would like to just acknowledge Todd, and if any of his staff is here today, would you please just stand and give him a round of applause. There's just been all these added stuff added onto him this year. He's done an excellent job along with all the staff. But again, you see these guys in wet and grime and some of the heat and conditions that they work in, just do an excellent job. Going to the Register of Deeds, basically less revenues going to be coming because there's less sale of of properties because of the higher interest rates. So there's going to be less recording fees and less transfer fees. Next slide, please. Okay, the county clerk. I call these three people in this office the dynamic trio. If you've ever been to an executive office meeting, I mean, you should hear Maria give her presentation. It's almost a joy to listen to. She's one of the most efficient individuals I've really ever met. She's always looking at ways to improve, get things more efficient for the county. She's going to be basically working diligently with the implementation and training of the election equipment over this next year. Again, Lee is probably one of the most knowledgeable guys when it comes to computer technology and writing programs for Excel that I actually ever seen. It's really a joy to watch these guys again work, roll out stuff, and get some things done. You're really fortunate to have these guys, these people, as doing what they do from the county clerk position. Clerk of courts. What's all been happening in there is that, I mean, there are actually some fees for more people are coming in that cannot speak English. There's an increase for interpretal grant to be paid to do interpretation. This past year, we've actually added, there was a part-time, a half-time judicial assistant for Branch Court 2, and there was a half-time register of probate. For the last 4 years, 3 people were employed in that position. It's a very difficult position to be in when you got 2 bosses and 2 different job descriptions. So and all the other judges had a full-time judicial assistant. So with all that was going on with the increased workload at the register of probate, we decided to give Branch 2 a full-time judicial assistant and create a full-time, added a half-time FTE to the register of probate. Things are going very, very well. Service has been increased, and talking to Chris Morphelius, it's just a lot more harmony in the division. The FLIC, or the Family Law Information Center, has gone out of business, so they're kind of trying to find ways of supplying those services, and whatever they find is probably going to be increased in cost, so that's going to be a consideration with the clerk of courts going forward. Next slide, please. Okay. Treasurer and tax collections, you can take a look at, basically line 2, an increase of $580,492 for the investment income. Just like interest rates are going up, that's a benefit for the county, but also I'd like to make a point that as interest rates are going up, it's also a detriment when we take a look at, if we're going to be looking at building a Justice Center, a jail, LEC complex. So it can be good in one way, but also we've been trying to keep the debt down for the reason of inquiring debt for expansion and the building of buildings, which we haven't done. So it's actually hurt us in the last couple of years because we have not applied the plan that you guys were trying to apply for the last 10 years. Next slide, please. Public safety. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff that goes on in public safety. Grants are adjusted up, down, jail assessment fines, increase, decrease, collections from inmates, happens all the time. The ambulance fees are increased by $240,000. Detention pen contracts are adjusted. With all that has taken place, we created the budget, and then basically in that budget, we knocked out a place for the drug officer. These are just more adjustments to the public safety budget. The cost of EMS equipment has gone up exponentially. We're in the process of working out the EMS negotiations. They were on a 3-year schedule. We're looking at putting him on a 4-year schedule. And the way, because of the higher increase in capital, you're looking at a $491,000 increase. The reason it's so high is because for the last 2 years, what's been happening in labor. So basically, they had to get a bump up in labor to get them to the current standards when we renegotiated the contracts. Also, we're looking at fuel decreases for the upcoming year slightly. Next slide, please. The ADRC, again, there has been a lot going on in the ADRC. As you remember last year, they're looking at possibly closing the adult daycare. We kept it open through donations and through some efforts of staff at the ADRC. They have increased in usage and clientele over there to make it somewhat in line with expenses. So overall, with the ADRC, it was a little bit hard of the budget to get it in line because some of the funds and grants coming from other areas were reduced because they classify our ADRC as like a class 1. And so what's been happening at the state level is they're trying to get more money into some of the lower class ADRCs within the state to bring those up to the higher standards that we are actually current at, but that doesn't help us with fund-wise. So we had to kind of give them some help from the fund balance. Next slide, please. Center. Again, because we did not, we have gone through the process with the architect, the owner's rep, and the construction manager. We've got all those numbers down and established. The levy amount is down considerably for this next year. And also what's kind of happening over at the healthcare center is they did get an increase in Medicaid payments, but then also when you get an increase in Medicaid payments, your supplemental funding comes down. So it's basically a bait and switch type thing that's happened to go with some of these payments that you get, money in one hand and they take it away on the other. So it really is hard. So and it's almost impossible to make a healthcare center economically feasible with Medicaid and Medicare payments. And the funding from the government is way below what it should be to provide what the services that it needs to provide. I'll talk more about this later. Next slide, please. Health and Human Services. Again, we added 5 positions. The budget has increased considerably, close to $6 million. But if you look at line number 3, the public charges for services increased overall by, almost $5 million. Go to the next slide, please. Then if you look at the second line, the contracts for services increased also by about $5 million. So they basically got a bunch of funding for increased services. They added some more people, and they're going to be doing that much more work in the upcoming year. COVID grants are being reduced. Through SLR funding, they did get employee health record software to help increase the efficiency and get some of the paperwork reduced, so they get it on electronically and they can share that much more efficiently and effectively, and hopefully save them a bunch of time and a lot of money. They have also been providing quality services in very difficult conditions with the water main break, as you all well know. Kim has been just busting her tail to keep people in places and having an effective services throughout the county. Next slide, please. Parks. Basically, you take a look at Parks. I mean, he's like the child that never gets any attention because they're always doing everything right. I mean, he's got a nationally recognized mountain bike course. They're potentially looking at expanding some of their sites. Just do a great job over there. The parks continue to do well on excellent rentals and sites and lodges. And there's some of the high points of what's happening in the parks. Take a look at highway. We can just talk a little bit about the vehicle registration fees. They did increase, go from $25 to $30. You had discussion over at the county board, but to reiterate, there was a possible, talk of doing away with the county highway tax, but that just doesn't make a whole lot of sense because you have to have so much money to maintain the roads. Cost of maintaining these roads has gone up considerably. To do it through the highway tax is much more economic. We can save about $100,000 compared to going to bonding. So yeah, there's an aspect of wanting to talk to your legislators and your representatives to change, to get more highway funding coming back to the municipalities, but you still don't shoot yourself in the foot and spend more money to maintain your roads if you don't need to, in my estimation. So I think you did a great choice of increasing the wheel tax. It's a hard, thing to talk about in the community, but again, give them the information that it's actually the most economical way to go in the long run. Next slide, please. Solid waste. Basically, solid waste is actually losing, or their current contractor is looking at not signing on with them in the future, in the upcoming years. So they actually have an RFI out for contractors for the transfer facility and also for the material, the MRF. That they're the feasibility study, and actually, Chairman Marissi, has the feasibility study been completed yet?
The feasibility study for
The solid waste department.
it is in process.
Okay, that's what I
So
thought.
that's coming up on I believe our next update for November.
Thank you. That's all in the making. That's kind of what we're looking at doing is taking a look at which way we want to go with that. There's a lot of options to keep those what we can do to keep the garbage collection costs to a bare minimum for all the municipalities and for Portage County. So that's kind of an ongoing process. Amanda and Appy as you all know, do an excellent job over there. We'll be kind of giving you more information as time goes on. Planning and zoning. Basically, again, you've got grants that come in, grants that go out. You've got the business park over there that has an $8 million fund balance. The weed commissioner position that was established or renewed last year is doing very, very well. The DOT and the highway department are very well satisfied, and actually they're kind of saving the county a lot of money by getting it done rather than through the highway department. The comprehensive planning process is about 50% complete, and after that, we hope to be moving into the evaluating of the ordinances. Next slide, please. Okay. Here's the big questions. You've got the health care center in them, was passed. Here's some of the questions that we actually talked about last year. We were wondering if we could staff it. Yes, we can staff it. It's a challenge. Overall, the county has a very experienced workforce. We have to take a look at, what's happening with retirements. We have to take a look at transitions. I'm actually going through a process of making sure that when the department heads do leave, there is potentially a person that they're raising up to take that position. If we so choose, if they were so choose, would apply for the position. But to making sure that those people are covered because those are valuable people to the county, and you got to make sure that transition from one person to the next is very, very important. So we found out that, we can staff it with the help of the HR. HR has done a phenomenal job in getting the people that we need over there. They worked very diligently and hard to find the people without actually applying PRN. And the other question, are the residents available to warrant it? Yes. For a 32 plus an 8-bed facility, we can find the residents. And again, for that size of a facility. Can we build it for the referendum? We found out that no, we could not. Because of the increase in inflation and construction costs, there's no way we could build it for the 4.5 million. It will cost in the neighborhood. Actually, I believe we're looking at having Michael Peer from Clifton Larson Anderson come and report potentially at the board in the near future. It's apparently roughly that 6.5 million figure. Accurate financials are going to need to be determined. You just, with all the income or the revenue coming in, the county will never operate a healthcare center that it does not substantially subsidize at the current operational model with current reimbursements from Medicare and Medicaid. You county supervisors will have to decide if you want to take the referendum again to build a healthcare center at these subsidized levels and compete with the private sector, or do you potentially sell the healthcare center, or do you want to close the health center, which would potentially be, involuntarily. The condition of the healthcare center. We need to make decisions, I believe, very quickly and appropriately, so we don't run into some forced decisions on us. The jail and LEC, we're basically at the same place. I'm going to talk about that later. We're going to talk about that later on the agenda, so I need to address that at this time. Okay, where are we at? Portage County is in excellent financial shape. I'm basically handing this budget over to you. It's my budget. I think the staff has worked diligently to put this forth. It balances. You basically have the decisions before you as far as whether you want to keep the positions that we put in there, what you want to do, or there's considerations of reclassifications at highway. There's considerations of adjustments over in the sheriff's department. That there's a process to take that through, take it through committee. Jenny's going to actually give a budget and brief presentation. If there, she can probably potentially go through that to make sure that's done appropriately. But that's where we are kind of at for the budget. If there's any questions, I maybe have time for just a couple of questions, but.
Thank you, sir. John, did you say Jenny was going to talk too? Here she goes. I guess you are.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight about the 2024 proposed budget. The information has been posted to the county's website, so we also did print off for you the budget and brief document that I'll just be kind of walking through this evening. This document is intended to be a brief representation summary of the budget. There also is on the website more detail and a full budget document as well.
Good evening, Jenny.
Good evening. I think as they get settled, I'm just going to kind of start and take you through the first couple pages is just information about the county, information about our community. I'm going to skip ahead to page 9. County Executive Pavelski has already kind of walked through the tax levy summary. Just to point out a few things, operating levy, the healthcare center referendum levy, and the debt service levy are all subject to the levy limit. The referendum and the debt service are adjustments to that levy limit. The countywide EMS bridge and culvert aid, and then any property tax chargebacks are outside the levy limit, so those are treated a little bit differently. And as mentioned, the total tax levy did go down. Previous year was $35,998,056, and it had dropped to $34,950,277. Last year's tax rate was 488. This year's will be 430. If I skip ahead to page 11, this is kind of just a summary view of our revenues and expenditures for all funds combined. So the total for the county operating and capital funds combined. You can see that the 2024 budget is 5.5% less than the 2023 modified budget. Just for some perspective, the budget we adopted in 2023 was $126 million. So we've had a lot of adjustments throughout the year. The budget amendments I bring you every month, those amend the budget. So even though it says our budget went down 5.5%, I would expect that the same thing is going to happen come 2024. We're going to get some grants. We're going to make some changes. The budget is going to go up. So I don't want you to see that as a holy cow, the county dropped their budget, we're not doing as many things. It's just as reflective of we've had some grants go away, some projects finish, and those things are going to come back. They're just things that we don't know today while we're preparing next year's budget. Page 12 is kind of a representation of kind of the same information, except instead of categorizing things in terms of general government or public safety, we categorize the expenditures as personnel services, contract services, instead of saying, you know, globally, what's the function that's providing the services? It's like, what specific service or category of service we're providing. And if you have any questions on the definitions for the different types of revenues or the different types of expenses, like what's in contractual services or what's in intergovernmental revenue, I can go through those, but I think you've heard that from me enough times that you probably don't want to hear it again this year. On page 13, just a couple things to point out. We present a budget summary by fund. We have numerous funds in the county, governmental funds, special revenue funds, enterprise funds. We have a couple of new ones this year that haven't been in the book previously. We added the Wetland Mitigation Bank for the project that's going on at the Highway Department. We've also added one called opioid. We need to track any opioid settlement dollars specific to those uses separately, then we can't commingle it with any other funds. So that is different this year. You can also see the property tax broken out by fund. Just noting for capital projects, we did increase that $50,000. For the healthcare center, property tax, the 1.9 million roughly that's represented there is all subject to the referendum. And the total would be $34,950,277. Page 14, just a couple quick highlights. Again, we've talked about taxes going down. They went down roughly over $500,000. And the substantial drivers there were both the drop in the healthcare center levy and the bridge aid levy. Intergovernmental revenues did drop $5.6 million. That is really subject to state and local fiscal recovery funds projects that are being completed. So we'll recognize that revenue in the year that the projects are completed, and then they're not in next year's proposed budget. So that's really what that represents. Public charges for services. That shows a increase of about $6.5 million. There's about $4.9 million of that attributable to CCS and CLTS programs at Human Services, Health and Human Services. And those programs are to address mental health services and children's support services for children that suffer from have mental health needs or other needs as well. Healthcare center, public charges went up about $642,000. Again, that's because of increases in reimbursements proposed, and also the EMS program is projecting an increase in revenues as well. On page 15, the majority of our revenue is from taxes. Just comparative, last year's adopted budget, we were at 37%. This year we're at 34.2% of the overall budget for revenues. Last year, intergovernmental revenue was at 15.3, this year 15.9. Public charges for services, this year is at 17.7, last year 13.5. And intergovernmental charges for services, this is us billing other governments, is at 20.7, and last year was at 24.1, and that's mainly driven by highway projects. Page 16, just a few expenditure highlights. General government did increase by $2.4 million. That specifically is related to health insurance claims anticipated to go up and miscellaneous employee benefits increasing. Public safety has shown an increase as well. Again, that would be due to increases to EMS provider contracts and also some increases in law enforcement, including the new position for the drug investigator. Public Works, that change is related to projects planned between 2023 and 2024 at Highway. Health and Human Services, that increase is attributable, again, it's about 5.7 million, mostly to Comprehensive Community Services, CCS, and Children's Long-Term Support, CLTS. And the drop in conservation and development really is related to state and local fiscal recovery fund projects for those that were classified in that function. General comments about expenditure by type. Personnel is up not only due to increase in wages, but also we are up overall 10.93 permanent FTEs. Contracts has increased about 3.1 million, again, driven by those services provided for HHS for those two programs. EMS contracts are being driven there by anticipated EMS contracts. And those are being offset by a decrease for state and local fiscal recovery projects as well. Capital projects, you'll see a huge decline, but just as a reminder, we don't try to estimate out what we're going to spend this year to carry over into next year. We estimate the best that we know that we're going to spend this year, and then we'll do a carryover once the year is closed at end of year, rather than to try to do that math twice. Going to skip ahead to page 18. Again, just some comparisons to the prior year for expenditures by type. Personnel services, really close to last year, which was 38.3%. This year we're at 38.6%. Contractual services is up a bit. Last year was at 42.6%. Supplies and expenses are down. Last year 6.7%. In terms of page 19, other similar comparisons, general government the previous year was 19.1, public safety was at 14.9, so a little bit lower. Public works was at 27.2, and this year is at 22.4, again, driven by projects. Health and Human Services overall was at 28.9, but down to 25.1, and the rest are all comparable. On page 20, this is a representation of the estimated fund balance at the end of this year. Please know that these are estimates. I can't predict the future. Wish I could. But the unassigned fund balance is what I want to point out on here. The only category that can have unassigned fund balance is the general fund. And we have a policy that says we will have between 15 and 25% of operating expenditures related to those funds that have tax levy. And this puts us at about 22.6%. So we were well within the policy. For 2024, that is estimated at 21.7%, so still within our policy. You will note that on these, enterprise funds and internal service funds don't have fund balance because they're not governmental funds, so they have assets which the governmental funds do not report. So it's just a different representation based on fund type. Page 22 and 23 are just about the budget process. County Executive Pavelski kind of indicated to you tonight. After tonight, this is your budget. So you have a series of kind of meetings between now and November 1st when you get a chance to adopt the budget, to ask any questions that you may have. I know next meeting, there's an opportunity to maybe ask questions or to make referrals back to committee if there's things that you want committees to talk about because you've looked at the budget and you want to address certain things. And then there's timelines for budget amendments to finance committee and such as well. I'll just share at this point in time if there's a need or for staff to attend a committee meeting or address questions, or you have questions, we're happy to do that. Just reach out to us and we're more than happy to answer questions that you may have, whether it's on the phone or in a meeting. Debt service highlights. County Executive Pavelski touched on this. Just the two takeaways that I would say from this slide or this page is that we try to work in anticipated debt issues just to give you some perspective on what that does to our outstanding debt limit. And as you can see, projected for 2024, we're well within our debt limit. And there is room to add debt for projects if you so choose. 2025, just a listing of capital projects and how they're being funded. There were some adjustments from the plan that was adopted in August in terms of what got placed in the budget. The LIDAR elevation data update project came in at a different cost and the grant resources were a little bit different, so we made some modifications there. The interior finishings for the annex, the chiller replacement for the annex, and the elevator control upgrade for the annex, we moved up. And then there was one project, the library flooring project, that we moved back. So we did do some adjustments to better fit the schedule for capital projects. Page 26 is just a representation of some of the achievements that we've had and some of the things that are in the upcoming plan. Page 27, the highlight that I'd like to share with you here is we've had unprecedented growth in equalized value the last 2 years. And you can see the totals for the county for both 23 and 24 over 10%. That's going to mean something when you flip the page and you look at page 28. And as you can see, if you look at that last two columns, the percent change from previous year in terms of equalized value growth has not been over 10% in the past 15 years until the last 2 years. So that really is kind of not typical and very good for Portage County. You can also see in this table that you can see the decrease from 2023 to 2024 in the overall tax levy and the changes to tax rate, as well as a comparison of the percent net new construction each year. Page 29 is an overall summary of positions and FTEs by department and function. Overall, the county increased 10.93 FTEs. The departments that did have changes, either in new positions proposed for 2024 or possibly positions that were approved during 2023 that would have been changes after we adopted last year's budget, would have been the courts in branch 2, the facilities, Sheriff's Office, Solid Waste, Health and Human Services, Aging and Disability Resource Center, and UW Extension. And then just lastly, like I said, please contact us with any questions. The budget is on the website. I don't know if you can flash that on the screen. If not, you can use the link provided. And feel free to take a look. Just would like to say thank you to the county board for your ongoing and continuing support. Special thank you to Finance Committee, as your support is appreciated. and in going over different budgetary issues and talking through how to handle or approach or plan for certain things. Thank you to Executive Pavelski for being patient with me. And thank you to the department directors. They put in an amazing amount of work and come through every year with answering tough questions and being innovative in their ideas, and it's very much appreciated. And a special thank you to the finance team, who really is a talented and dedicated group of people, and this wouldn't get done without them. So thank you.
All right. Next item, discussion only. Number 4, county executives update and discussion of possible options related to the government facilities master plan project.
Last year, in my document for the budget, I believe I said something like this. Counties in Wisconsin are mandated to maintain a courthouse, sheriff's department, and jail by state statute. Our counties have been studying the need for a new or radically updated courthouse and jail for the last 26 years. Our county buildings have provided us with very good use for 60-plus years, and a county city building and 30-plus years for the jail LEC. The fact that these facilities are outdated, do not meet safety standards, and can no longer properly serve the needs of the community at the level required by a modern society is not disputed. What happens time and time again is the need is understood, the need is very black and white, but when the budget is presented, many decision makers vacillate. And rather than dealing with the situation and coming up with a solution, they delay the decision down the road several years to someone else. Every time construction is delayed, the price goes up by millions of dollars. The county incurs hundreds of thousands of dollars of design fees, staff time, and wasted effort. Our buildings continue to deteriorate, citizens continue to be put in unsafe conditions, and we're not able to provide the proper services that our community needs and deserves. Many of our dedicated employees are working in inappropriate, outdated, and inefficient conditions. I urge all supervisors to consider all the facts dealing with this monumental decision and weigh the pros and cons of the information that will be presented as we look forward to a position the county for the next 7 years and be the leaders we were called to be. We have basically no farther ahead than what we were back then a year ago. I talked about my genetics earlier in the presentation. I don't like seeing things not going forward. I'm a man that, likes to see things finished, likes to see things accomplished. I see staff busting their tail on behalf. I see excellent staff that's not having their resources or their efforts being put into appropriate usage or a time effort. The effort's there, but it's not being utilized as well as it should be. Apparently, we can't build a jail and an LEC on a green site. We can't build a jail or LEC downtown. Would you go to the next slide, please? Some people have met with the city, and there's a proposal on the table that the county builds a jail LEC fleet garage on a greenfield site that the county and city agree to. And as long as the county commits to either building a new courthouse downtown or remodeling the current courthouse. So if the county agrees to this proposal, the city would be potentially willing to vacate the courthouse in an appropriate time to allow the whole building to be used for the courthouse and county building. What I'd like to hear today to discuss with you is if you have some appetite for that. I don't want to go another 2 years, 4 years, 6 years without something getting done. The needs are understood. I think this is a viable compromise to get something built, get something accomplished, and get the needs of our county taken care of. If you go to the next slide, please. Basically, why is this a possibility? Possibly stops the gridlock for the last 20 years. The remodeling of the current courthouse has never been looked at as a whole. if we actually remodel the current, if you actually want to take a look at that, it could save the county potentially, millions of dollars. And it gives the county potential space, actually extra space, to actually move potentially some offices from HHS into the court building, because some of those offices in HHS are in courts, 2 or 3 times a week. The preliminary indications are that it can support 4 courtrooms and provides, potentially the security of a modern-day courthouse. We'd have to take a look at that. And again, so it also solves some of the parking problems. If the jail LEC moves out, we can use the current parking of the jail LEC for other employees, and potentially also demolish part or all of the old jail LEC and use that for parking. Or you could use that to actually rebuild and put a whole new courthouse in that location if you so choose. There's also that one of the big concerns that I'm concerned with is it stops the wasting of money as time goes on. I mean, again, I've been accused of trying to promote fear in people for the costs that the county is incurring over time, but those are real costs. And interest rates are here to stay. You can think all you want that things are going to get better, but with the UAW on strike, those guys are going to get at least a 30% increase. If those guys get a 30% increase, what do you think the cost of your cars are going to do? They're not going to go down, folks. So inflation is here to stay for a while. Interest rates are going to potentially stay up for at least where they're at. Historically, they normally stay about 7 to 8%. We're still at about 5.5%. So from historically, interest rates, we can actually go up. So the more we wait, the more it actually costs the county. And I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on that. I can show. Some people will say it's a 6th grade math problem, but I mean, apparently we're not understanding a 6th grade math problem because we're not applying ourselves to getting something done. So I would ask you if you want to, again, I'm looking for some feedback from you. That is this a potential solution to our problem? If there's any questions that you want asked, what do I got to do to get you that information? And we can kind of go from there. If anybody has any other questions of me, I'll be happy to try to answer them. But I'm looking for input from you as policy makers to get the direction that we can possibly move forward.
So the biggest part is that we cannot discuss this, openly unless we are here. We've talked about a committee of the whole, and that's informal, but this is also somewhat informal. And what we're looking here is to try and get a sense, trying to get things that are people's objections, people's thoughts, why or why not, answer any questions, have the discussion, the debate, talk about compromises. And as John had stated, we've been doing this for a long time, and we've got to figure out what we can do, how we can do it, and what's best for the people of the county, these employees. We've said that as well. What we have now is not ideal. I sit in on the capital improvements every year. It's like, oh, that's on hold, that's on hold, that's on hold. We're not sure what we're going to do. And it's no way to run a business. We've got to figure out what we can do and how we can do it and what a compromise looks like. So, who wants to start it off? Mr. Splinter.
I'll start. I'll try to keep it real brief. But the status we're in the last couple months reminds me of Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz coming up to the Scarecrow up on a post saying, "Which way do we go?" And the Scarecrow goes that way. And only until they got him off the post did they get him on to a path to the Grand Wizard or whatever. But I know we can't vote on this tonight, but I would be highly supportive of a compromise position where we have a standalone jail and a standalone new courthouse downtown. And like I say, we can't afford to do nothing because we've got 2,800 people that we represent. And I hope tonight that all 25 of us, I mean, this is not a time to sit in your hands. This is time to give some feedback to our county exec as to what the consensus of where we want, do we want to go to this new path. And if you look at Washington or Madison, nothing gets done without compromise. Nothing. Nobody gets their way all the time. So I think this would be a great compromise to get things moving forward, build the jail, tear the old jail down, and make it into a parking lot. I don't care. Or at least it'll be a construction site for the courthouse. So there's a lot of great reasons why we could go this route. Plus, the final thing is that the city has agreed to sell us some property. We're not fighting the city. That's great. I didn't want to fight the city in the first place. But the city has offered this. They put it on the table and to John, and I think it's a great compromise and a way to go forward. Because if we don't move it pretty quick, in April, probably 30% of us are going to get replaced somehow, and we start all over again. Let's get something done. And please, just say a short comment, anything, but say something tonight. Don't sit on your hands. Thank you.
Supervisor Barry Jakowski, then Supervisor Soik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Executive Pavelski. I find it a little perplexing that the city has maintained that this is the hub of the action here in downtown, but still the city wants to vacate. It seems a little strange to me that if it was important for us to be down here, it should have been important for the city to be down here as well. It seems like if it fits their situation, that's what they want, and I just find that strange. They moved the police department out of here. They're willing to move the rest of their government out of here. They moved their transit facility out of downtown, but we should be forced to stay here.
I didn't hear your first part of your comment, but I believe that where the city is looking is in the downtown area as well. So, and it may just be a few blocks away. So,
That's
just
all
to
we wanna
be
do.
just to be clear.
Move
So-
a few blocks too.
so, Supervisor Soik, then Supervisor Hemmerich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. All for building a new jail. We need it. Anybody that's been through there within the last couple of weeks would understand. If you haven't been through there in the last couple of weeks, I beg you to go through there and take a look at the conditions that our employees are working in and our inmates are living in. So absolutely 100% a new jail is needed. All for doing the necessary upgrades on this building to keep the courts right here where they want to be, and all for having the city vacate the building. We all heard good fences make good neighbors, and I think this would go a long way in mending those fences to make good neighbors and intergovernmental working relationships and cooperation. So yes, 100% on a new jail. Yes, doing the necessary upgrades to this building. And yes, on having the city vacate the building in a timely manner and bringing more of our county employees into this building to do the job they need to do. Thank you very much.
Supervisor Hemmerich.
I agree with
Use your mic.
Supervisor Clifford.
Use the mic, please. Use the mic for the people at home.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
I agree with Supervisor Clifford on this. I think that if we build a jail in the green site, that will the people that want to move to the green site will be happy. And I believe that we should build a new courthouse downtown, not spend $35 million renovating this building and changing the space. So my thoughts along with Supervisor Clifford that new jail in the green space and a new courthouse downtown.
So just so the rest of you know, I'm going to call on each one of you anyway. So you might as well raise your hand at some point. So don't sit on your hands. I want to hear your feedback. So don't think you're going to miss out on this one. So anybody, Supervisor Medine, start preparing.
I have been the strongest advocate for a full continuum of facilities that serve offenders and their families and victims in this area. And I just want to introduce this by stating that it ranges all the way from registration of offenders, which we have the largest concentration. We have day report at the jail, which is here. We have the halfway house, family crisis center, sex offender houses, the halfway house, I guess I said that, and then the 2 drug and alcohol recovery residences, all in this area. So I've been, and then finally the jail at the other end of the continuum. I have been the strongest advocate of that for 35 years, and this will come as a shock, but I am changing my mind.
It is a shock.
It's important, I think, that we have that continuum. We would be losing the jail continuum on one end and the day report on the other end. But we would have the rest of that full continuum within this area. And there would be a courthouse with a sense of justice activity within this area. I guess I think it's time to be able to make that statement, and maybe it comes with age, but I think it's really important. Now, just as a set of background on how what our history has been, we had a vote for a bond issue that lost. Well, it got 15-10, but not enough to have the 19. It seems to me that it would be appropriate to have a full consensus of all 25 members to go about this. Now, what we had on that vote was a bond issue for $175 million, give or take. $105 million for the jail and about $65 million for the courts. If we had another, as the finance director calls it, and this may not be appropriate, but if we had an intent of a resolution that had that same amount of money, probably has to go up a little bit because we would be separating facilities. Right now, there's some advantages to combination as we looked at them in the past. But that 60 million may go up to 65 million for the courts, and that 105 million for the jail maybe go up to 110 million because of the separation. We could still have a resolution so that everybody would have a complete understanding of what of the outcome of this, so there would not be one faction or group that would have the appearance of maybe being left out. I don't know all the financial ramifications of that, but it may be a very appropriate way to go about it. One additional thing, the executive and the city have discussed this. I don't think there has been an offer by the city. I think they gave some, or anything official. I think that they gave some ideas to the executive, and the executive and the city are going over some of those things. So I think it might be better to call it rumblings of putting the jail out in the, a little bit further out and keeping the courts down here. Because that would be, we have one person in this county that has the authority to be able to gather the kind of information that it would take to be able to see if this is a reasonable approach to take, and that would be our executive, and I have full confidence that he and the other entities could at least gather some information and get that to us to see if this is the way to go.
So
That's all I have.
two things. First, thank you for the compromise, because I would say you changing your mind or changing your stance is what we were talking about before, where we are looking for compromises or the ability to find what the compromises are to get to a path to figure out how we can build something. and get enough support behind it to do it. Two, with as far as talking with the city and stuff, and as far as an offer, I would say we're dipping our toe in the water, and we're just kind of trying to figure out where it is. But that's been talked about and it's been kicked around. But both of our two high-ranking officials from the city are here tonight to listen to this discussion, because that would either initiate more discussion or not. So that's where we're going. Who's next? Supervisor Peterson.
I'm all for compromise also. I was in the jail here about 2 weeks ago with this Citizens Academy. The jailers, instead of tending to the prisoners, says they were running around with mops, squeegee buckets and stuff like that. The prisoners had not had water, showers, or anything since the middle of the day. So I think that we've got to do something, and if they do go out into a green field, and if we can build a jail like Mr. Helmrich says, or courthouses here most likely be a good option, but we could leave that looking also. But it's a compromise. I think that would be in the right direction.
Thank you. Does anybody want to hear what I think first? No? Okay. Supervisor Hakala.
So when I saw the email that the county executive sent out a while back about this, I asked if I could speak to a judge and get their opinion. And I don't want to say things that may have been said, but the judge was actually supportive of this proposal too, which has convinced me that I would support it as well.
Oh, I gotta write your name down so I can keep track. Supervisor Dodge, you want to clean up that back row?
Yeah, might as well. We had some discussion at Space and Properties, and I have modified my position. Since I was chair of Space and Properties a few years ago and was very supportive of the jail and courthouse justice center being downtown. So I think I'm in great doo-doo if I don't compromise.
Watch the language.
What did you say?
Watch the language, church
That's
it up.
okay. So anyway, I certainly think we must move forward on the jail in green space. Mayor, you need to listen to us. And actually, John made a good comment. He said, if they ship the prisoners to this building, we will have an opportunity to review how it works. Then we can decide if we want to remodel this building or build new. But we will base it on some experience. So I guess I'm for both. Got it?
Got it.
Thanks.
You. Matt, are you ready to go?
Sure.
Okay.
Just so you know, it's 0-0, top of the, or bottom of the first. And this hurts to say this a little bit, but I got to thank the mayor.
Did you hear that?
Yes, I thank you, Mr. Wiesa.
Yeah. I wanted to make sure he heard it. He was talking. So.
I got to thank the mayor, and I got to thank Executive Pavelski. When past executives in leadership, so thank you too, Al, have punted on this and given up, you three did not. I see the compromise as a way forward. Am I happy about it? No. Is it a way to get done what we need to as a county? Yes. Is it going to inconvenience some people? Yes. But I think it's a path forward where we can get done what we need to. Now, I've said this at Space and Properties that we had just prior to this meeting. There was talk of a new courthouse, talk of remodeling this building. that decision has to come later on when we figure out, put a price tag on it. Now, it was brought up, one of the members brought up the question, well, that they said that this building wasn't feasible for a courthouse, even with a remodel. That didn't include the 10,000 square feet that the city currently occupies, give or take 1 or 2 feet probably. I'm not sure that's an exact accurate, but that's what was brought up at Space and Properties. So I think we need to look at that too as an option, not a total new build. And maybe it's something, and I'm going to use a number, it's not even a close number, but I'm going to say 100 million to remodel and 105 million to build new. Well, that's a no-brain decision at that time. But I think we need to look at a remodel option, maybe a new court option, maybe a court tied to one of the other buildings that we currently own and can use some space in. There's a few things to look at there. Jeannie hit on it, or excuse me,
Supervisor Dodge.
Supervisor Dodge.
Formal.
Yeah. I called her Alice earlier in a meeting, so
I answered.
she was trying to get to Wonderland. She was having us break ground by April.
Started prednisone today. I'm spacing. I'm on a roll.
This is just a continuation of Space and Properties. So, but
Any HIPAA rules around here?
especially that she hinted on earlier and talked about that we build new or build, and like I said, that'll do that. But it's a way forward. I think we're to the point that we need to move on this. Supervisor Splinter mentioned that there may be turnover on the board. There may not. Who knows? No one ever knows what happens in an election. It's going to be an interesting election year as we set off path here. But I think we need to get something done in through this board before that turnover happens. Otherwise, we start the process over again. We're behind the 8 ball, and we're going to be here, or some people are going to be here 2 Octobers from now doing the same thing we're doing. And again, thank you, Executive Pavelski, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Chair, for not giving up on this and punting like past leadership has.
Thank you. Thank you. And in the past, I've always tried to keep these meetings light and humorous, but we need to reel it in just a little bit, Jeannie, so.
I won't say another word.
That would be Supervisor Dodge, Mr.
Supervisor
Chair.
Dodge. Next, Supervisor Pataki.
Well, I'm glad to hear what I'm hearing. We might be on the road to building a new jail, and I hope we do. But some of the downfall that I hear is the transportation of the prisoners to the from the jail to the courthouse. Well, we have a video system that we utilize, and I think maybe another solution might be to build just a little judges' chambers or whatever courtroom in the new jail, and rather than the sheriff's bringing 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 prisoners to the courthouse, have one judge go over to the jail and hold the appearances there. So I hope I agree with the Greenfield and with the courthouse downtown. That's fine with me.
So just on that topic about the smaller courthouse over at the jail, I think I had brought that up to one of the judges, and I can't remember which one it was, but the fact of the staff and the rest of them, the stenographers and then the rest of them that have to go with it or be involved with it is also. So it's something that can be looked at, but I just throw that out there as an obstacle that may or may be in the way. So who's next? Shabilsky.
Thanks for calling on me.
Yeah.
I mean, is it just me? I'm supposed to address Mr. Chair. Is it just me, or does the air feel different? And I'm not just talking about the air conditioning.
No, the air's on.
Does the air feel different in here right now? Yeah. To me, it does. Yeah. And I know, as somebody who's been watching this process from the outside for a long time, and this is kind of, in my head, what I was envisioning. I mean, you always say, you go into a negotiation or a compromise. If everybody's a little bit unsure, a little bit unhappy, probably a good thing, because that means everybody's given something and you're meeting in the middle. So, I'm just getting this now. Probably have to look at what the city thinks and what the city wants to do. But man, this is sort of what I've been hoping for. So a compromise, everybody getting together, and to sort of beat to death a little bit the analogy or the metaphor that we were using a while back. I mean, sort of seems like mom and dad didn't have to go to marriage counseling. Seems like they decided to sit down at the kitchen table and talk it out.
Mike? Dave, you want to finish up that roll?
I can, thank you. So my opinion is I'd rather get 80% I want instead of 100% of nothing. And I've always been an advocate of having the jail built in the green space. Also with the law enforcement center, we kind of skipped over that, but I think the jail and the sheriff's office, law enforcement center go together. I have no problem with keeping the Justice Center courts downtown. I think we need to first get one thing built first before we move on to the next item. And then we can take a look at rebuilding this. We've got a great superstructure here. We might be able to remodel this quite effectively, efficiently. And with sheriff's office and jail gone, if that's leveled, we would have enough room to maybe build something new and maybe vacate a street or where we need to do. I think it's important that we move those squad cars out of downtown in the residential area. We need to get them on the outskirts of town where they're close to two major highways and interstate. We got I-39, we got 66, we got 10, we got HH, Highway B. We need to get them further out where they can get rapid response and not be driving through residential neighborhoods at high rates of speed. So I'm for the compromise. I'd rather see us come to the center and then work out. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next? Supervisor Morrissey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I, to echo Supervisor Shabilsky, am happy with the increased dialogue about this and the willingness to compromise. As an advocate for institutions being in civic centers and strong towns, I believe the courts should be here in the civic center, like the major civic center in Portage County. I always assumed that since we were talking about this project, that those things had to be connected. I never liked the idea of having a jail connected to the courts, to the sheriff's office, all in a downtown location. But in order to preserve the institution that are the courts in our civic center, the battle that I fought was to keep them here, if that meant that they were going to be connected. Hearing that there's a willingness to move the sheriff's department and law enforcement center and jails out of downtown actually kind of eases my mind a little bit. I think it's a great misuse of space in a downtown area to put a giant box in the middle of it. I do have a couple, as soon as you tipped your hand, Chair Haga, that you're going to ask us or make us all speak, I started writing down some questions. And I do have a couple that if the executive can answer, or the mayor, or whoever, I'd really appreciate it. My first one is, I support the building of a new jail. I've been through that facility 3 times in my years on the board, all on my own volition. I was never arrested, not yet. There's still time. There's still time, Sheriff. But my question is a proposed 200-bed facility still the right size of jail in our community? Arrests, we don't have to do this all at once. I just want to clarify a few things. We've had a lot, we've had a lot less incarcerations. We're putting a lot of people on ankle monitoring bracelets. We've shipped out a lot of people, obviously. To pair with that is the sheriff, if you can answer this, is
he's already up.
Are we right sizing it? And then, considering the lack of staffing that many sheriff departments and jails have right now, because there's a staffing crisis in everything, healthcare centers, jails, all sorts of things. do we actually have, are we going to be able to staff a 200-bed facility in the future?
Okay. Mike? Sheriff?
And then I have more questions
Yep.
after that.
Can you repeat? I'm kidding. First of all, in regards to the 200 bed, I've done through, I think now 4 or 5 studies in regards to the jail capacity. Right now, our average population is about 115. Max is about 135. And this is coming off of COVID and we're increasing right now. So when you look at a 200 bed facility, you look at 80% capacity DOC restrictions. So we're looking at what, 160 or up that. But then you have to talk about the classification in regards to inmates. So if we have, 6 different classifications that we have to, in a modern facility, you have to have classifications. You can't have max with minimums or minor security. So when you look at that, in all seriousness, if you have 130 inmates, you're probably at your max capacity. And that's what we're at right now. We're not going for, looking for contracting, other counties or any items like that. We're looking at realistic figures that we looked at. When I first got elected 9 years ago, they said we should build 400. That was our first one. They said 400, we need to build for the future, and this is what we're doing. Well, the studies were completely wrong. You look at our jail population through the last 10 years has plateaued about the 135 to 153 for the maximum capacity. And that's with increased electronic monitoring. So I do have to also account for the electronic monitoring, because if they mess up out there, I have to bring them in. I have to have the housing for them. We also have to account for nowadays the mental health. For individuals in regards to mental health capacity for housing, that's included in these, along with, holding cells and modern DOC restrictions. Your second part of your question was?
Staffing.
So looking at a pod system compared to our linear facility right now, going through with Tegra, BWDR, and the other facilities, I don't believe I'm going to have to increase my operations in regards to this because of the pod system and how effective operations are in a new modern facility compared to what we have now as in a linear facility. I'm not saying if we build a 2-story where we have pods on top of pods, then we're talking operational costs increasing. But with a green site, single-story location, the operations would not. And in regards to transports, and also somebody brought up, I wanted to just bring up, day report is not part of us. It's in our building, but it's not part of the sheriff's office. So day report can, and I've seen in other counties where they are at different facilities and items like that. What's nice about day report that's in our facility right now is if somebody does mess up, they can walk up, come to the jail, or report to the jail. So that is one part of the day report. But in regards to, where was I going on this? Staffing, yeah. Staffing in regards to that, and also transporting of inmates, it's as we're doing right now. So instead of walking, we're driving. So especially if there's a remodel here, of course, we're going to do a certain secure from downstairs or something, a sally port, and we're going to be doing that. I mean, just like we do for any high-risk security right now, we don't walk them, we drive them. So, I mean, we do that now. So, I mean, there's no change of staff, no increase of staff for a facility of green space to bring people to court. And our average people bringing to court is about 23 inmates right now. And we're talking about a court at the jail. Our initial appearances are all done via electronic right now. All their initial appearances. Our ones that are requested are after that in regards to appearances, but our initial appearances are all done over at the jail on video.
So getting back to the size of the jail, if you're saying that your max is like 156, the main reason that we can't build a jail to 156 is you tell me what's the correct proportion for male, female, juveniles, minor, there's so many classifications, and you have to have room in each one of those at their capacities to be able to fill them to come back in. Because we've heard that over and over and over about the 200-bed jail is too big. It's the classifications and the separation that has to go on, and the ability to have room there to be able to do it. Okay?
And the second thing I'll just say about that in regards to the jail size, you're not increasing staff for those pod facilities. And if you hadn't had a chance or seen a pod or look in regards to the pod systems, I mean, Wood County's doing it right now, and it's so efficient with having central command right in the middle of a 200-bed facility, having another person in there and one roamer. So you have 3 people monitoring those. So you have a whole different way of utilizing staff compared to us having to have so many on the floor because we have to do the checks all the time manually going to these cells, and so you have to have very labor intensive.
Thank you. How many more do you have, Vinny?
Just a couple.
2? A couple is 2?
A couple is 2, yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Sheriff. I just wonder also, just to ease that burden on deputies and jailers, is it possible to figure out some sort of budgetary requirement that we have mental health professionals available for nonviolent offenders, people who actually are having a mental health crisis at the moment, rather than, having dispatch being able to say, hey, we're going to send this mental health professional to help these folks instead of law enforcement, or law enforcement will be our backup. That's a big concern, and I think it's a viable medium in terms of how we can take care of people.
Sheriff?
Well, in our facility right now, we contract out with Southern Health Partners, which is a jail nurse in there that does the evaluations for mental health, and also we have HHS. We have an actual person up there for mental health treatment in our facility. We're one of, be honest with you, if you look around central Wisconsin and throughout Wisconsin, to have a full-time nurse and to have a social worker in our jail is pretty unbelievable. So we are ahead of the game in regards to that, and those healthcare workers come in and they actually set people up in regards to scheduling appointments, getting the help when people are released in regards to their criminal activity, to treat them so that they don't come back, so the recidivism's less. But we do have some of that in the works right now, and it wasn't until a year and a half ago that we were able to actually secure the full-time jail nurse that does the assessments in regards to this and assist on that.
Do you have someone who actually goes out in the field, though? Not like if someone calls 911 and says, hey, there's somebody outside of my house and they're doing X, Y, and Z, and but they're not causing any harm. Do you send a mental health professional to help with that, or is it always a police officer?
So Vinny, I'm going to reel you back in on that, though, because we're talking about the new construction and the rest of it. Sorry.
Sure. Yeah, and
I understand. I do understand where
weeds.
he's coming from.
Okay.
There are SART teams throughout the state that do this in larger communities that generate a social worker that goes out with law enforcement in regards to nonviolent. But the problem we have, to be real honest with you, is our call volume is so high. When we get called for the mental health, it's usually with criminal activity that's relating to going back to be incarcerated or to us to do an actual mandatory commitment.
Thank you.
Yep.
My final question. So this whole process over the past, 9 months has been really tenuous between the city and the county board supervisors who are pro and the county board supervisors who are against. And there's been this erosion of trust, right? I will say I've been rather distrustful of leadership and how we're presenting this information and how we're moving forward. I'll say that I am heartened to see what we're doing now. Thank you to all of you. But what kind of assurances do we have as advocates for a strong civic center downtown and having our jails and courts downtown that there isn't going to be like a bait and switch? What kind of contractual agreement are we putting on paper that says, if we build this jail out there, that in 2 or 3 years when we start to build the courts, that all of a sudden we don't move it to out in the green next to the Greenfield site. And I just think it needs to be talked about. I think we can move beyond and be better than that, but where's the dotted line and what are we signing in?
So the part that I was confused on in the discussion was the fact that there's talk of a contract of us building a court down here or something, and then just the fact that we're all elected and how that document can be enforced in the future by different electeds. One of the things that came up in a discussion earlier today in my office was a deed restriction. So if we're given land out in the green area, and we need 15 acres or 20 acres to build a jail and a law enforcement center, it would have a deed restriction on it that would say you cannot build a court on it. That's probably the simplest and the cleanest for everybody, if we're willing to agree to that. Okay? Mike shaking his head. Versus a contract and anything else, because what happens going forward, we can sit and debate and talk about whether another body has to recognize it or what that looks like, and we can spend a lot of time spinning our wheels on that versus just put a deed restriction on something and say, it's done.
Well, that's my concern, is because we do have resolutions in the past that supported a downtown site, and then because we're a new body, we don't have to actually enforce those resolutions.
So I think a deed restriction would accomplish what you're talking about in the most simplest and easiest of all of those.
And whose blood do we use to
That gets
sign
recorded.
that?
That gets recorded. It's a document that's recorded, and it would be part of the discussion. If we're purchasing land, it would be disclosed at that point, and this body would have to agree to that, and that deed restriction would get placed on it. And I'm not sure what the full procedure of that is that goes through with the city and the rest of it, but that is an avenue that we can explore. Okay? Is that it?
I'll come up with more.
No, you'll be fine. Supervisor Gifford.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chair, for recognizing. I'm listening to the discussion. I came into it, unlike Mr. Medine, with my mind unchanged, based on, again, that I know nobody wants to hear it, but that I thought the urban sprawl site would be unsustainable, and part of the literature on sustainability is that you don't put people who are disadvantaged in a further disadvantaged position in doing public policy. And Mr. Medine had done that one-page sheet about how the population around the jail, making up the jail population and their families and so forth, are basically here in downtown area, and if you look at the socioeconomics of the county, Stevens Point has 44% economically stressed households, right? So the interaction with law enforcement, when you're lower on the socioeconomic ladder, just tends to be higher. So I felt that, the idea that all these disadvantaged people having to move around back and forth, zip back and forth to the jail facility for various reasons would not be real sustainable for them. But now I'm realizing that if I stick with this position, I'm just going to be outvoted anyway, so I might as well take another look at it. But my one question remains, and I think Chair Hagan may have just answered it, why we couldn't build the large pod system jail with ample facilities for mental health, counseling, treatment of people's behavioral disorders and so forth downtown. But when you drop the number 15 to 20 acres, I suddenly realized why that's not going to happen. So, and just to clarify for the sheriff, I've always been in favor of Sheriff Lucas' demand for more space, more accommodations for all of the different treatment necessity for inmates so that they can actually get rehabilitated. And the one workshop I went to, and this is not a diversion, but one workshop I went to at the Counties Association dealt with mental health interaction with, with the county system, including law enforcement. And it was Racine County and Jefferson and one other county where they actually have dedicated people even in their 911 center, who are mental health trained professionals with degrees in these fields, who will take a call when it's a question of someone about to act out on mental health reasons, let's say.
Again,
and that person will interact with those people, right?
For the same reason, Bob, for the same reason that I reeled in Mr. Moresi, again, we're talking not about the mental health part but the construction of the building and its placement.
Yeah, and having enough facility, enough space, enough.
Yes.
All in one center. And so when you drop the 15 to 20 acre number, I kind of realized I better just change my mind along with Mr. Medine, because I don't think I can hold out for that, let's say.
And I think the sheriff answered that to some point because of the 200 beds and stuff, and also keeping it on the first floor makes a difference. It changes our operational costs into the future by having to go up instead of out. Supervisor Rockman, and then I'm going to call on Supervisor Hano, will clear up that role. And I think we got that whole section.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You're nothing if not efficient about this. I haven't had this job long, and I didn't think I'd ever actually say this, but I agree with everybody. These are all valid concerns, and obviously there are conversations that are going to need to continue, but this is the first sort of reasonable approach that everybody kind of feels all right about, and that's an amazing start. That's really all I got.
Thank you. Supervisor Hano.
Yeah, I think I came prepared to compromise as long as all the discussion, especially the questions that were raised by Supervisor Morisi and others, that if we build a law enforcement center and it's out on green space then Sheriff Lucas has always advocated for academic services, health services, counseling services, job training services, literacy training, and if we can build in that kind of service that folks need in this setting, then I'm for the green space. That's fine with me. I like your idea, Chair Haga, about not letting newly elected people come through here in 2 or 3 years and say, oh yeah, but now let's move the courthouse. So if we can work on something that will stand, I'm all for it too. I'm in agreement.
Does she have her hand up? Thank you. Supervisor Morrow, did you want to go next?
Yeah, if we can get something safer for the staff, I'm all for it. So I think it's a great idea.
Thank you. Supervisor Rakowski starting up the front row, folks.
Thank you, Chair Haga. 10 years I've been on this board. It's nice to see a board. I feel like it's day one here again, though. Maybe there's some optimism here tonight. I've seen too many times where we hit the green light and we're off and running, and then we hit the red light and it stops. I'm hopeful that this is just the first day of a long conversation. I think this has got a lot of details to work out yet. My biggest concern was, when we started this last round, I was not optimistic. I was pretty sure it was going to hit with a thud, and it did. And my point at that time was we need to invest in security in our courthouse. Every month goes by, we do not make any improvements to our security in our courthouse. That's a real problem, and that's a problem for everybody here. That's for the public, the staff. I have concerns about our deputies that work in these buildings, and I think before we get too carried away about starting a project that's going to take us a few years to get through, I'd like us to look at our security here and start that as soon as possible.
Thank you. Supervisor Jankowski.
We need to compromise. That's the main thing.
And this is a compromise, as far as I'm concerned, is a compromise. I was looking at a campus-type setting. We aren't going to have a campus-type setting. It's not going to work for us. So this would be a compromise that we get started, we get things going and rolling, and hopefully come up with a solution that'll take care of the courts as we go down. Like Supervisor Burkowski just mentioned, we've got security in our 2024 budget. We better start approaching that, even though it's temporary, but getting security here at this building.
Thank you. Who's the last one in that row? Supervisor Dubek.
You know what I do for a living? I will wait you out.
Do you have anything to add? I'd like to get your thoughts.
I will wait you out. I have nothing to add.
You have nothing to add? You're waiting me out?
Well, I'm a school teacher. I'll wait you out the whole day if you want me to say
Okay,
something more.
all right.
So we can be here till 12 o'clock tonight if you want to.
So we got one row left. We got three other supervisors. Who wants to go next out of that row?
The educational part.
Raise your hand. Supervisor Fritz.
Hi, I'm the new guy on the board, and I really only know what I've read in the media. And so being a representative, what do? You go to your constituents. They come up with a really small laundry list. They want it easy to find, easy to access, ADHA compliant, and they want it safe for not only the public, but the inmates and all the staff. And as one gentleman told me, you could build it on the dark side of the moon after that. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Which one's going to go next?
It would be a little.
We've got Supervisor Oki and Supervisor Keller.
I can go. So I'll just echo much of what's already been said and applaud the efforts and diligence given to moving these projects and advancing these projects. So with that, I will favor what is on the table and explore how it takes shape.
Thank you. Supervisor Keller.
I don't like any of it. Just kidding. I got to tell a joke. I can't help it. No, I like almost all of it. I do have concerns with the idea that we should put any deed restrictions. I don't think this board has any business telling the 2057 board what in the world it can and can't do. And I would just like to say, building today, we build in today's dollars. Build tomorrow, we build in tomorrow's dollars. It's all relative. I like the idea of going in phases. Phase one should be making this building safer. Phase two, building the jail. Buying enough land to do what we may need to do, I think, is imperative. So being landlocked would be a terrible mistake. 5 years from now, we may decide, yes, we don't need to invest as much into this building because it just doesn't make sense to continue having the courts here. So none of us have a crystal ball, and none of us are experts in any of this. So I like the idea of buying enough land to do what we or our future boards need to do and not restricting them based on what we think we want them to do. Thank you.
Supervisor Matt Jakowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I've heard it mentioned a couple times tonight, and I don't want people to have the wrong perception of our jail. I've heard about education programs, rehabilitation programs. That's currently happening in our jail. I just want everybody to be clear of that, because the way it sounded is, if you're somebody from the outside looking in, out there in the public, the media, listening to this meeting, you're hearing, well, they want to do all this programming, they aren't doing it now. No, we're doing it now, but we can't do it for all our inmates because the ones that are getting shipped are not receiving those services. I just want to make that clear, because our jail staff, the sheriff's department, the jailers do a terrific job of rehabilitation and literacy work, academic work in the jail that we have. We just can't do it for everybody. With that being said, it's top of the third, 3-0 Brewers. I move to adjourn.
Nope. Supervisor Dobek, did you want anything to add yet? No?
We can wait till the ninth inning if you want.
So, now do you want to hear what I have to say? Yeah. Okay. So, you know, as we, you know, and I'm really encouraged as well, and I'm glad to hear all of the good comments, all of the good words, all of the everybody, you know, willing to compromise to try and find something, to try and find a path, move forward. I think everybody that I've heard is in agreement that our jail needs to be have something done, and I think we even had a resolution that was the first thing that was supposed to be done of all of the things that we've got to do, and it needs to be taken care of so we can get those folks back from Wapaka here, and they can have those services that we're all talking about, because I've heard that several times as well. They need to be brought back in order to be able to do that. And I believe, or in my vision, I always thought the same way. I always felt that we needed to have the law enforcement, the jail, and the courts together. And as a compromise, I guess I am willing to look at the idea of separating those as well. Not that it's ideal, but that it is something that gets us to the end. I think Supervisor Laddick said it. Am I 100% happy? No. Am I 80% happy? Yes. And I'll take that. And if it's what we can do to get something moving forward and get the things accomplished so that we can have a safe place for the public, the staff, and everybody involved. I guess the way I look at it, or the things that I see here, is that if we build the jail and the law enforcement center out on the green space and give the law enforcement that access to quick response time, and when they're transporting or bringing people in or out or whatever, that it's easy to find for them and they can get them in and out quickly and easily, that's a win. When I talked about the campus before, I think there is a vision in my mind, or a blueprint for a campus downtown here, and I think it was Don Jankowski that said it wouldn't be a campus, but I have to think that it may be somewhat of a hybrid of a campus, because what I see is that I believe if we're going to build a court, I believe we need to build a new one. I'm worried that if we remodel this one, and I will keep an open mind to it, and I want to see what it looks like, but I'm worried that we are bound by the existing footprint that we have here now. And I kind of look back at the jail we had that we built to a cost. I'm worried that if we build the courts to this dimensions and these sizes, that we're not going to have something that works well versus a clean sheet of paper, because there are so many things in this building from a security standpoint that we could do so much better that there may not be room for everything, without going into a great amount of detail. So I believe that a new courthouse, and whether it's when the jail is gone, and this all may take 10, 20, 30 years. I don't know how long it's going to take to get to this point. But I think that the first thing we have to do is build a law enforcement center and the jail. We get the bonding out, and hopefully that'll be a smaller bond. We're not looking for $180 million to build a law enforcement center and a jail. We get that up and running, and we pay down on that. Now we're starting to work on where the courthouse goes. Well, if the jail's gone, we take the jail down. Do we build a new courthouse? Will it fit on that spot? Do we tear 1039 down and put a new court over there? Either one, whatever works out or whatever we come to as an agreement, I think is a good place for a court. I think it accomplishes the fact that we would have a lot of parking around the court because it's a standalone court. I think that we talked about construction costs in the phases 1, 2, and 3, how they got expensive. This one, because it's just one phase of building the courthouse, the construction costs hopefully aren't high. The other part is now that this building is vacant, so we have the county out, so that also the role that the county clerk, the treasurer, the register of deeds, corp counsel, that hallway is the only thing that's left in this building. That might as well go in the new courts as well. There's just a few other offices. Put those over in the courts as well. Now this building is completely empty. The city is gone. The county is gone. The courts are gone. What do we do with this building?
Granite countertops.
So then I have to wonder if it would make sense for us to look at the possibility down the road of remodeling this building for Health and Human Services. Now, do we have a campus? Yep. And that may be down the road again, and I, maybe 10, 20, 30 years, I don't know. And we're talking about sticking $6 or $8 million into the Health and Human Service building. But again, by the time that all of these pieces fall into place and this all happens, is going to be 10, 20 years down the road. And that building layout at the Ruth Gilfrey building will be obsolete at that point and busting at the seams and ready to look at something else as well. So there, now you got to hear what I thought. Supervisor Moresi.
Just to kind of summarize that, what you're kind of outlining is the original Medine plan. Dave Medine has had this kind of vision ever since I've known him. And I've seen pictures of it with tissue paper over tissue paper outlays on top of it, manually constructed. And it's a very good and sound and good plan for our community. So if we look at that in a deeper way, of course, with modern building practices and modern designs, you have a good outline for a good plan that's literally 3 seats away.
So one of the things that we've got to figure out then is that I think we've got our marching orders, Executive Pavelski, that we need to continue to either talk with the city and see what that looks like to be able to bring something forward or to talk. And if we get to that point, we may bring it forward for discussion. And then when we start to make offers or whatever, we will approve the financing first before we spend, or I think to make sure that we have this approved, because I think that was, can we do that? We got a lot to work out, folks. Supervisor Gifford.
Yeah, just before Supervisor Drakowski calls for adjournment, I'd like to suggest maybe this, assuming that this jail out in the Greenfield is going to go forward, let that be a catalyst for this county to build a real first-rate 21st century public mass transit system so that our low-income people, people who work out there, and this bold, young, new workforce that everybody's craving to bring in can get around to their jobs, because generally are going to be lower income people too. So hopefully that this could be the catalyst to get something really robust going to move people around better.
Thanks.
Anybody else have anything? No?
No.
Oh, Supervisor Keller.
I just wanted to say I look forward to more of these discussions, but I think it would be nice if we invited the county executive to have a seat while we do it.
I was curious to see how long he'd stand there. That's all right. So
As long as you agree, I'll stand here all day. I mean,
good shoes on. So that's enough torturing the executive. Thank you. You can sit down.
With that, I'll second Mr. Dukowski's motion to.
No. If we're done with discussion, I think we had a very good discussion. I want to thank everybody tonight for this opportunity for us to have this. So, public notice: members of the public who wish to address the county board on specific agenda items must register a request at this time, with such comments subject to reasonable control of the county board chair as set forth in Robert's Rules of Order. No comment, no one from the public. What's that, Don? You have to leave. You have to leave? Yep. Okay. So, yeah, you can leave, Don. You can go on to watch Brewers?
No. Okay. I got a call from the patient.
All right. Number 5, approval of September 19th, 2023 minutes, moved by Shabilsky, seconded by Laddick. All those in favor with aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed? And it's, motion carries. And we're going to remind everybody now, we have another meeting here October 10th, which is next Tuesday. It's not the third Tuesday, but it's the 10th. So I want to make sure everybody said, well, I didn't know about it. So All right, with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Motion by Supervisor Splinter, second by Supervisor Hendrich. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. We're adjourned.
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.